What would you do if on your wedding night your new husband whispered, "I bought you"? You belong to me now. Claire Bennett never imagined her life would turn into a waking nightmare the moment she said, "I do." Forced into marriage with a powerful, silver-haired millionaire to save her mother's life, Claire entered a world far darker than she ever expected. Behind the gates of his grand southern estate, beneath the polished marble floors and expensive chandeliers, lay secrets soaked in fear, obsession, and possibly even blood. But Claire wasn't just a victim. She was a mirror of someone long gone. A vanished woman, a dead wife, a ghost. The whispers in the night, the locked doors, the cold stares from the house staff, everything pointed to one horrifying truth. Claire wasn't the first. And if she stayed, she might not be the last. Stay with us as we uncover a chilling story of survival manipulation and one woman's fight to reclaim her freedom in a house that was never meant to let her go. What really happened to the first Mrs. Hale? And how far will Claire go to avoid the same fate? The answers will haunt you. The church was quiet, too quiet for a wedding. Claire Bennett stood at the altar in a white satin gown that shimmered under the stained glass windows. But there was no joy in her eyes, only dread. Her hands trembled inside delicate gloves and her lips pressed into a line, as if they might betray the scream building in her throat. Across from her stood Richard Hale, nearly 70, his silver hair slicked back, deep wrinkles tracing his face like a map of secrets. He gripped her hand tightly, too tightly, as if afraid she'd bolt at any moment. "Are you sure, Claire?" her mother Susan whispered from the front pew, her voice barely audible. Months of chemotherapy had drained the life from her face, leaving only hollow cheeks and eyes filled with desperate hope. Claire looked back at her throat, closing around the lump that had lived there for weeks. No, she wasn't sure. She never was. But the hospital bills were real. The debt collectors were ruthless. And without this wedding, her mother might not live to see another month? So Claire nodded. "Yes, I'm sure." A soft laugh echoed from behind her. Claire turned her head slightly and spotted Dylan Carter, her cousin, lounging in the third row, arms crossed, an amused smirk curling his lips. "What a performance," he said under his breath. "Really, Claire? Marrying this old man? There are easier ways to get money." "Shut up," Susan hissed through clenched teeth, clutching her daughter's hand. "She has no choice." But the priest had already begun. "Do you, Claire Bennett, take Richard Hale to be your lawful wedded husband in sickness and in health, for richer or poor?" Claire felt her heart pounding in her ears. Her legs nearly gave out. And then somehow the word escaped her lips like a dying whisper. "I do." Richard's eyes sparkled not with love, but with possession. "And I do," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. "She's mine now." The reception was held in Richard's grand estate just outside Charleston, South Carolina. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, champagne that cost more than Claire's entire education. And yet she sat at the head table like a corpse in a bridal gown, staring into a glass of untouched red wine. Around her, people whispered. "Look at her," a woman in pearls sneered to her friend. "You'd think she's at a funeral." "She probably is," the other replied. "No young girl marries a man like that unless she's forced to." Claire didn't respond. She couldn't. Her smile was fake, her laughter silent, and Richard, sitting beside her, with that smug, controlling smile, leaned close. "Smile, darling," he growled. "You're my wife now. Don't embarrass me." She forced her lips into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Richard's hand slid around her waist and squeezed hard. "I don't like cold women," he whispered. "I paid for you. Act like it." "Yes, husband," Claire murmured, her voice nearly cracking. That night, a black luxury car drove them up a long, winding road to the Hale estate. Trees lined the path like silent sentinels. When the wrought iron gate swung open, Claire saw it, the mansion. Massive, elegant, and utterly lifeless. Its windows flickered with a few dim lights, but it might as well have been a crypt. At the front door stood Thomas Green, the butler. His face was expressionless, voice flat. "Welcome home, Mrs. Hale." Claire shivered. Something about him felt wrong. Inside, the mansion's air was heavy cold, as though the walls had soaked in something sinister. "Tired?" Richard asked. "Good. We'll go to bed." "I want to rest alone tonight," Claire said, almost begging. Richard's eyes darkened. Don't make me repeat myself. He grabbed her wrist and dragged her up the staircase. Outside, far beyond the gates, Dylan watched from his car, exhaling smoke into the night. You chose this, Claire, he muttered. Good luck. Upstairs, Richard shoved open the bedroom door and closed it behind them. The bolt slid into place with a loud click. Claire stood frozen. Please, she whispered. I'm not ready. Richard chuckled coldly. Doesn't matter. You're mine. He stepped closer. Claire backed away. I said no. Something shifted in Richard's gaze. Not compassion, but calculation. He released her wrist and let out a disappointed sigh. Fine. One night he said, but don't test me. I hate disobedience. I paid too much for you. With that, he turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. Claire collapsed onto the edge of the bed, still in her wedding dress, nails digging into her palms. The silence screamed louder than any voice. The next morning, sunlight crept through the heavy curtains, but it brought no warmth. A gentle knock startled her. Good morning, a soft voice called. Claire flinched as the door opened and a woman entered. She wore a crisp black and white maid uniform, hair pinned back, eyes downcast. I'm Grace Turner, she said quietly. The housekeeper. Mr. Hale instructed me to bring your breakfast. Claire stared. I can't leave the room. Not without his permission? Claire clenched her jaw. You know what kind of man he is, don't you? Grace's face went pale. Don't ask questions, Mrs. Hale. Just don't make him angry. Why? What happens if I do? Grace looked to the door, then back at Claire, her voice barely audible. People who oppose Mr. Hale don't end well. Claire's blood turned to ice. What are you saying? There are secrets in this house, Grace whispered. If you want to survive, don't dig. Before Claire could ask more, a chilling voice cut through the air. Grace, out. Thomas Green stood in the doorway, cold and silent. Grace quickly exited without another word. Thomas stepped in, eyes scanning Claire. Mr. Hale wants to see you. Now. Claire followed him to Richard's study, a dark wood-paneled room with drawn curtains and a single desk lamp glowing dimly. Richard was there, swirling red wine in a crystal glass. Sit, he ordered. Claire obeyed. Do you know why I married you? He asked. Claire met his gaze. Because you want to control me, he laughed. No, because you look exactly like my first wife. Emily. Claire's breath caught. What Richard pressed a hidden button. A curtain slid aside, revealing a massive oil painting of a beautiful woman. Claire gasped. The woman looked just like her. She disappeared, Richard said softly. One stormy night. No one knows what happened. And now, you'll replace her. Claire couldn't speak. Her heart pounded, her hands clenched tight. Something was very, very wrong in this house, and she was just beginning to uncover it. I'm truly sorry for pausing the story here, but I promise there's more darkness, secrets, and unexpected revelations ahead. And would you stay in a house like that if it meant saving someone you love? What do you think Richard is truly hiding behind those locked doors? Let me know what country you're watching from. We're so grateful to have you here. If you enjoyed the first part, please give us a like and drop a heart to support the story. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful tales like this to life. Claire couldn't sleep. The mansion breathed with shadows. Every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window felt like someone watching her. She lay on the bed still in her nightgown, staring at the ceiling, as if it might split open and reveal the answers she so desperately needed. Then she heard it, a whisper. So soft she thought it might be in her head. But then it came again, clear, deliberate. Run, Claire! She sat up, heart pounding. Who's there? She whispered into the dark. No answer. Only silence pressing in from every corner. She threw on a robe and stepped toward the window. The garden below was still. Trees swayed under the moonlight, their branches like fingers clawing at the air. The next morning, she confronted Grace in the hallway. Did you hear anything last night? Grace's eyes darted. No. Why? Someone whispered to me. Told me to run. Grace's hands trembled as she clutched the tray she was holding. Don't ask questions, please. Claire blocked her path. Tell me what happened to Emily. The maid hesitated, glancing around. Then she leaned in voice barely audible. Mrs. Hale, this house eats people. Don't become another ghost. Before Claire could respond, Thomas Green appeared at the end of the hallway. "Miss Bennett," he said, voice cool as steel. "The master wants to see you." In Richard's study, the heavy air smelled of leather and aged whiskey. He stood in front of the same massive painting of Emily Hale fingers, clasped behind his back. "You've been wandering," he said without turning. "That's dangerous." "I heard something last night," Claire said, standing her ground. "I don't care what you think you heard." Claire's voice rose. "I'm not her. I'll never be Emily." Richard turned slowly. "No," he said, "but you're close enough." He walked to a shelf, pulled a book loose. A quiet click sounded, and a hidden compartment opened. Inside a velvet-covered switch. He pressed it. Behind Claire, a wall panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage. "Emily had secrets," Richard murmured. "She thought I didn't know. But I always know." Claire stared at the dark corridor. "What is this? Her private room," he said. "Go ahead. Take a look. See where disobedience leads." She stepped back, but Richard smiled coldly. "You're not ready. But you will be." That night, Claire waited until the mansion slept. Then she slipped from her room and crept through the halls. Every painting seemed to watch her, every candle flickered like it feared what she'd find. She found the red oak door at the end of the third-floor hallway, the one Grace had warned her about. It was locked. She remembered Richard's study, the hidden switch. Maybe there was a way in. The study was dark, but Claire moved quickly, pressing the velvet button and listening for the hidden door to slide open. It did. She followed the narrow corridor, heart pounding, until she reached another door. This one was unlocked. Inside was a small room, almost untouched. Faint floral wallpaper peeled at the edges. A perfume bottle sat on the dresser, long dried up. On the bed lay a photo album. Claire opened it. Emily's face stared back at her again and again. And in every photo, the resemblance was uncanny. It was like looking into a mirror. A whisper echoed again. Claire froze. She turned. No one. She backed toward the exit and noticed a wardrobe in the corner. Big, locked. She hesitated, then pulled. Nothing. She needed a key. Back in the hallway, she nearly bumped into Thomas. "You shouldn't be here," he said, tone darker than ever. "Curiosity is dangerous." "What happened to Emily?" Claire demanded. Thomas leaned in. "Open the wardrobe. See for yourself." He tossed her a brass key. Claire ran back inside, trembling as she turned the lock. The wardrobe creaked open. Inside, a white wedding dress, stained with blood. She gasped and stumbled back. "He killed her." Thomas stepped inside. She became a threat. "That's what happens to threats in this house." Claire's breath caught. "You helped him?" "I followed orders," he said coldly. "You'd be wise to do the same." He stepped closer. Claire backed away. "Don't touch me. You don't get it," he said, grabbing her wrist. "You're not a wife. You're a mirror, a replacement. He'll never let you go." Claire yanked her arm free. "You think I'll just let this continue? You'll die if you fight him. Then I'll die on my terms." Back in her room, Claire sat on the bed shaking. Her whole body trembled, but her mind was clear. She'd seen the truth. The mansion was a gilded prison, and Richard Hale was its warden, a man obsessed, dangerous, and possibly a murderer. She had to find proof, and she had to get out. I'm so sorry for interrupting right here, just as everything is heating up. But the next part of Claire's journey gets even more intense and shocking. You won't want to miss it. What do you think was truly behind Richard's obsession with Emily? Would you risk your life to uncover the truth if it meant saving yourself? Tell us what country you're watching from. We love hearing from viewers around the world. And if this story has gripped your heart even a little, please drop a like and send us some love. Your support means everything. Claire couldn't breathe. She sat on the cold floor of the storage cellar beneath the Hale mansion, clutching a thick file of documents against her chest. Her hands were scraped from opening rusty cabinets, her nightgown stained with dust and fear. But what she had found was more than just financial records. It was proof. Proof that Emily Hale hadn't vanished, she had been silenced. And the monster behind it all was the man Claire was forced to call husband. A single slip of paper trembled in her grip, a handwritten note from Emily. "If you're reading this, I didn't leave, I was taken. And if you stay here, you will be next. Claire wiped her tears and tucked the files under her clothes. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from resolve. She would not vanish. She would not be a memory in a wardrobe. As she tiptoed out of the cellar and into the long, echoing hallway, she froze. Thomas Green stood waiting in the dark. "You've gone too far," he said calmly, stepping forward. "There's no turning back now." "You're right," Claire whispered. "There's only one way out forward." She tried to move past him, but he grabbed her arm. "You think anyone will believe you?" he sneered. "You're just a girl he bought." Claire pulled her arm free and stared him down. "I'm not just a girl, I'm a survivor, and I'm not leaving here without justice for Emily, for myself." Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the end of the hallway burst open. Voices, flashlights, the sound of boots on marble. Police. They stormed the mansion like a wave crashing through rot. Claire stood motionless as two officers rushed past her and tackled Thomas to the floor. "What the hell?" he started, but was silenced by cold steel cuffs snapping around his wrists. "Richard Hale," a commanding voice shouted. "Come out with your hands where we can see them." Claire ran to the study. Richard stood behind his desk, wine glass in hand, still wearing his suit like nothing had happened. "Is this your idea of revenge?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "No," Claire replied. "This is the truth coming for you." He smashed the wine glass against the wall. "You have no right, I have every right. You destroyed Emily. You tried to destroy me, but you forgot one thing." Her voice broke, but she lifted her chin. "I wasn't alone." Officers entered, the study guns drawn. Richard lifted his hands, trembling with rage. "You fools," he hissed. "She's my wife. She belongs to me." "Not anymore," Claire said. "Not ever." As they led him out, the same hallway that once swallowed her in dread now echoed with justice. In the courtroom weeks later, Claire sat tall in a pale blue dress, hair pulled back, eyes clear. Thomas had confessed everything. Richard's crimes, fraud, abuse, even suspicion of homicide were laid bare for the world to see. The jury saw through every lie. "I never loved her," Richard had said on the stand, pointing at Claire. "She was just convenient." Claire had simply responded, "And now your convenience is over." The gavel slammed down. Guilty. Justice at last. But it wasn't over. 1 month later, Claire returned to the mansion not as a prisoner, but as its legal owner. She hadn't expected to inherit anything, but Richard, in a desperate move to save face, had transferred the property in her name before the trial. It didn't matter. She wasn't staying. She sold the estate, donated most of the proceeds to organizations supporting women escaping abusive marriages. She kept one thing: Emily's locket, found buried in a box in the cellar. Inside, a tiny photo of Emily and the words, "I lived, I loved, I mattered." Claire wore it the day she signed the papers to close the mansion's chapter forever. She moved to a quiet coastal town in Oregon, opened a small flower shop. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. And every morning when she opened the doors, sunlight spilled in like a silent promise. "You are free now." One afternoon, while watering the daisies in front of the shop, she saw a familiar figure walking up the sidewalk. Grace Turner. They embraced without words. "You made it out," Claire said. "You showed me how," Grace whispered. "Thank you." They sat for hours drinking coffee and speaking of the past, not in fear, but with the strength of survivors. Two women who had once lived in the shadows, now finally standing in the light. And as the sun dipped behind the ocean, Claire smiled for real for the first time in years, not because the pain had disappeared, but because she had found meaning in the ashes, a life reborn from fire. Thank you for staying with Claire's story to the very end. Her journey reminds us that even in the darkest places, courage can bloom, and truth always finds a way. If you were in Claire's shoes, would you have risked everything for justice? Do you think Richard truly loved Emily, or only wanted to control her memory? What do you think about this story? If you loved it, comment number 3 below. If you found it just okay, hit number 2. If you weren't satisfied, type number 1. We'd love to know how we can improve. And tell us where you're watching from today. Please like, heart, and share this video if it touched you. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to life.